The purpose of this video is to help you set the model in terms of your confirmatory factor analysis model for assignment 3. So the first step that we want to do is just draw in our latent variables. I'm going to use the group environment questionnaire, and so actually the first thing I want to do is actually pull in the file I'm going to use. So I'm going to pull in file, I'm going to go to 315p, open. I see that I have no missing data. That's important for a CFA, and I have that, and I can click it. So now I have all the different items names listed right over here for me. Next, I'm going to create my different model. Now the ATGT, as you can see here, has 4 items. So we're going to create one latent variable, and then continue to click 1, 2, 3, 4, so it automatically puts in my measured variables and the unique variances. Next, the ATGS has 5 items. So I'm going to go 1 for latent variable, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, I'm going to do the GIT, which also has 5 items. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally the GIS, which has 4 items. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when I create this, I'm going to rotate it so that I have some nice pictures, nice cleaned up model here. I want to get everything into the right page, so I'm going to move things over. I might even try to clean up the model a little bit. The next step is that you have to make sure that you label your, or we're going to pull in our variables. So the first thing I want to do is double click, get the object parameters, and I'm going to call this ATGT. So I have to type in ATGT. This is ATGS. Next, we have GIT. And then finally, GIS. Then we want to bring in the appropriate variables. And by opening up this little toolbox, or this little box here, with all the variables, it makes it really easy because I can just drag and drop. So ATGS1 goes over to ATGS. ATGT1 goes over to ATGT. ATGS2, and so on. ATGT2, ATGS3, ATGT4, ATGS4. Now this is one of those times where you kind of wish you were doing a cooking show where I could say, hey, let's see what comes out of the oven and have this already done for you. Unfortunately, I am not that slick with my video skills, so you are going to have to watch me drag and drop each of these different variables into the appropriate measured variable. GIS, and then finally GIT. Notice I have another variable here in my data set, but I'm not using it for the purposes of this assignment, so I'm going to leave it in there. Next step I want to do is make sure I draw in my phi matrix. So I have to make sure that every variable, or every latent variable, is correlated to every other latent variable. Again, if you want to make that look pretty, you can take the abracadabra wand and clean all of those things up. You want to make sure that you have your reference markers planned. Now you see SPSS is going to automatically default the reference marker to be on the first of the different indicator variables. That's fine, and if you want to leave the default, that's fine. The more appropriate way would be to look at which variable had the highest correlation in your EFA assignment. So if you want to go through the practice, the way that you would go about changing that is you would just go into select, you double click on the arrow or the parameter, go under the parameters and see that regression weight, delete this regression weight so that it is freely estimated, and then switch it over to maybe a different item so that or to create the reference marker in that way. Your last step before you can before we set up the analysis is we need to make sure we label each of our different error variances. So E1, oh, not the variance. Make sure you don't change the variance. You want to make sure it's under text. Variable name E1, E2, and I'm going to have to do this all the way down into E18. So I'm going to pause for a minute and I'll pick this up when I'm done. Alright, now I have all my 18 error variances drawn in. If we go over here, we can see the different variables that are in the model, my latent variables, my different measured variables, and then all of my errors drawn into the model. So the last step is telling the computer what statistics to do. So you go over to the abacus with the analysis properties. Again, we're going to start an estimation. You're going to leave maximum likelihood because unless we have totally non-normality, the ML method is the best one. We're going to estimate means and intercepts. So we have to make sure we click that one off. Everything else we can leave as is. We're not going to make any changes to numerical. We're not going to try to make any changes up here to the bias. We're going to go to output, make sure we click standardized estimates, square multiple correlations, modification indices, let's see, covariance of estimates, correlation of estimates, and test of normality. We're not going to do anything to bootstrap. We're not going to do anything to permutations. We're not going to do anything to random, and I'm going to leave the title blank for now, but you can make decisions if you want to add in the title. Finally, because I want to make sure I run in the SRMR, I'm going to just open up this window. I just leave it there open, and you'll see when the data runs that it'll automatically fill that window. So the next step is to calculate estimates. Oh, what did I do? Oh, see, now it's telling me you have more than one variable. So you're going to get some error messages as you put this together, and you might find that you name one variable E, two variables named E1. And now I have fixed that. I have unique variables. Do I still have my SRMRs up? Yes. We'll bring that to the forefront. Now let's try running our estimates. Amos needs the following variables to be uncorrelated. Oh, it's because I did not see. This is where you get a little confused. I missed one of my phi matrix correlations. I told you some of these things don't actually draw the way that you expect them to. And then that doesn't want to clean up for me. But I just forgot to draw in part of my phi matrix. Let's try it again. Now it asks to know where to save it. I'm going to put in 315p CFA 2, save. It's running the data. We can see up here that we have an SRMR generated. We're going to have to write that in on our output. On the model, we can look to see if we click over, toggle over to view the output path diagram. This is currently unstandardized estimates. We can scroll over and get the standardized estimates. Remember, this is correlations. We have land X loadings here, and then everything just above the boxes, that's your square multiple correlations. And then you can open up the output, and you will get all the different output that you would need to review for the model, including the chi-square, all of the regression, the standardized and unstandardized regression estimates, the modification indices, should that become important, then the model fit. That we will review as a part of the lecture. Alright, hopefully you found this video helpful. Feel free to review it multiple times as you're working on your path diagram.